Hey guys, it's Michelle. I wanted to do a video that I thought would be kind of fun. Something different, but it's something that's been on my mind for, I don't want to say quite some time, but it's something I picked up on a while ago with my love for these guys. Obviously, you can tell by the title, Fraggle Rock Contradictions. Now, these are things that in the show they're talking about in one aspect that they understand, and in another aspect they're not sure of. Anyway, Fraggles aren't familiar with human things. You have Uncle Traveling Matt, who travels throughout the postcard parts of the show, and he talks about things that he comes into contact with, whether they're cars, or he talks about the people who are smokers or as mouth burners. So they have a almost Neanderthalic way of explaining our world, like dogs are silly creatures. So some of the songs, because I have the 3 CD soundtrack set, and I love it. And I was listening to it the other day, because I'm a big kid, so and I own that, don't judge. I was listening to it, and I'm like, my gosh. And I remember thinking back at different episodes where they don't understand the things that they're actually singing about now. So this is Fraggle Rock Lyric Contradiction. So I'm going to show you some of the examples I found. If you guys have noticed ones yourself, if you are familiar with the show and the songs, comment down below and let me know the ones you found as well, because I know there are more than the ones that I got listed here. But we're going to talk about it anyway. So I know most of the songs that I'm going to be referencing in this video are also here on YouTube. So if you want to look them up, please be my guest. So the first one is the song's called Do It On My Own, and it's a song that Red sings when she's doing her swimming extravaganza and how she doesn't want anybody's help. So she refers to making popcorn in the pop machine. Now that is probably something that even in today's times is kind of outdated. I remember having a pop machine. I actually bought one at Walmart years ago. When I say years ago, like 5 years ago, for like 20 bucks. You still can find them, and I think they make the most delicious popcorn ever, in my opinion. But what it is like this little white stand, and then you got the top is normally like yellow looking, or see-through yellow, with a little nozzle, and you pour the popcorn kernels in there with like oil or butter, and then it pops out into the bowl. Make sure you put the bowl, make sure you don't overfill it. Anyway, they only eat radishes and doozer sticks, which come from radish dust. And they talk, like in years past, back in the ancient times, they ate mushrooms. So the fact that she's talking about popcorn, that's not something that they normally eat. And they don't have electricity or anything like that. So the fact that she's talking about a pop machine stands out a little bit. The next one that I found was Catch the Tail by the Tiger, which is a song that Gobo is singing about bravery. So he talks about facing death, taxes, and hounds. So taxes, obviously, Fraggles don't really work. They do. I'll get into it a little bit. There's an episode where they talk about their jobs, and I think there's actually something on here. Yes, there is. We'll get into that later. But they really don't have real jobs. They kind of help each other out in their little community. So taxes don't exist with the Fraggles. So they don't have a government. They talk about we lead ourselves and each other. They don't have a government set up. It's more, I don't know if anarchy is the word here, but you understand what I'm going at. And of course, like I said a moment ago, they also talk about hounds. Now, hounds is a type of dog. Sprocket is one of the bigger characters in the show, and Sprocket is kind of this mutt of a dog. And I love him. My dog was almost named Sprocket because of the show. They refer to Sprocket as a furry creature. So they don't know what dogs or hounds or even different types of dogs are. So that was also a reference in Catch the Tail by the Tiger. The next one, and there's 2 of them, I found in 2 different songs referencing the same thing. Pink Ice Cream from Working, which is the song where they're talking about their jobs because they only have a 30-minute work week and they gotta do their part. So Gobo mentions about bringing home pink ice cream, which is basically his way of saying bringing home the bacon. The other song that makes an ice cream reference is the song Muck and Goo, and it talks about an ice cream cone for me to lick. Now, there is an episode where Wembley meets, I forget the name of the female Fraggle that he meets, but it's his first little crush. And Wembley hurts his head, and then he needs a moss pack, which is basically like a ice cube or, you know, like a cold compress for us. Anyway, but to us, it looks like an ice cream cone. So when they're referring to the ice cream cone, it's kind of funny because in this episode, I think it's called Love Potion number 9, I could be wrong, the female Fraggle asks Wembley after he hurts his head, would you like a moss pack? Then they go into the Uncle Traveling Matt period where they read the postcard and you see what he sees in the human world. And he went to an ice cream shop, not knowingly what the place was, and they gave him an ice cream cone, but he mistaken it for a moss pack, which he ends up taking the ice cream cone and putting it upside down on his head, and then he starts complaining how it didn't even keep his head warm, and that it was extremely cold, and he was very dissatisfied with the experience. So those are two songs, both referencing ice cream cones, and they don't know, like I said, they're not familiar with ice cream. They don't have dairies or cows or stuff like that, and they have moss packs. So the next one is Rock Our Way to Freedom. Now, they are familiar with being caged, but I don't think they are familiar with the calling it of a jail. There is an episode where Mogi gets captured by some Fraggles and they put her in a jail, but I don't think the terminology jail really registers with them as far as criminals and stuff like that. But they also talk in that song about not having bail. Now, bail money, as I know I'm talking to an audience that understands these words, but just for the sake of explaining the characters themselves, because they are very childlike, bail is like when you commit a crime, you have to pay bail to get out of jail. They don't have those kinds of things. They really don't have much crime, if any, in Fraggle Rock. There would be no need to have these items. So I thought that was interesting too. And then the next one is the Pantry Chant. Now that one in general, there's so many references that, like I said, all they really eat is Doozer constructions and radishes. So the fact that the food that they're referencing in the Pantry Chant is very odd. They reference stroganoff, they reference macaroni. What else do they reference in there? The stroganoff to me stands out the most because I don't think that's I grew up with it, but I don't think that's one of those typical American foods. I don't think everybody makes stroganoff. It's basically a stew. Delicious as all heck, but it's a stew. And like I said, they only eat radishes, prepared in different ways, thanks to Boober. But they don't really touch too many other foods. I know Boober does have a pantry loaded with all kinds of different foods, but he's really the only one that eats that kind of stuff. I mean, they eat radish bars, Doozer constructions, which are radish dust based, and radishes. You don't really hear them talking too much about eating other foods. Moki and Red, there is one episode where where Boober makes Red okra soup, and it is not met with much satisfactory. So that's one that I found interesting. So the next song is from Convincing John. Convincing John is in a few different shows, and obviously that's what he does. He convinces people of things. He would actually make a very great car salesman in many ways. But the song that Convincing John is trying to convince the Fraggles is Moki doesn't want them eating Doozer constructions anymore because she thinks it is morally wrong. And in the show things go onward and then things change. And anyway, she uses Convincing John to get the Fraggles to stop eating them. So he talks in this in the song about highways, how a Fraggle's eating up Doozer constructions like a highway. But they don't have roads. I know in the cartoon they do have like these little paths and stuff and these little wheeled car things, but they really generally speaking, they wouldn't know what a highway is. They have little roads and little paths, but as far as driving wise, they're not familiar with highways. And the other one, the one that like hits you right in the face, is he talks about if you eat too much Doozer constructions, you're going to turn into a human being. Now, you have Doc, who is a human, and they refer to him as a silly creature. So they have no idea what the term human is until the very end of the Fraggle Rock, not even just the series, but the last season, where Doc is talking to Goble and he explains what he is and what Sprocket is, that he's my dog, I'm a man, I'm a human. That's when they start talking about those references. But that is not till seasons later. So the fact that Convincing John is familiar with the term human being, again, one of those things that stand out with Fraggle logic. They aren't familiar with these words. And the last one that I found, but even off the top of my head, I'm thinking of other songs, but this video is already getting kind of long and rambly, and I'm sure half of you have no idea even what show I'm talking about. But I digress because this is something I am very much into. The next one is the song Freeway. And in Freeway, they're talking about, again, the highways and all those other things. And I just thought, again, referencing they do not have vehicles, even though there are the McDonald toys with them in the little radish cars. Those were never in the show. Those were never in the cartoon series. So they don't know what highways are or roads in general as far as cars go. They do have their little paths like I just reiterated. But these aren't things that they would normally be aware of. So those were my Fraggle contradictions that I came across. I thought they were, what's the word I'm looking for? I find it interesting because I really love the show and I love the innocence of the show and the messages that the shows teach. I think they have a great message and I love the music in the show, which is why I have the soundtrack. If you guys aren't familiar with Fraggles, you can buy the shows now on DVDs. I'm in love with it. You can find them on eBay, you can find them everywhere. You can even find parts of the shows here on YouTube. So if you aren't familiar with the Fraggles, I totally recommend you getting familiar with them. They are such lovable characters, and the show in general is just beautifully done. Definitely one of Jim Henson's crowning jewels, if not the crowning jewel in my opinion. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you are familiar with the show and love it as much as I do, or even if you're just familiar with the show in general and you were like, oh, I remember this song and I found this weird because they don't talk about this item like humans do. So if you found something weird like that, that's also a contradiction in the show, or even in shows in general that you thought was odd, I would love to hear your opinion on it. So comment down below and let me know. And if you like this kind of odd video out there of left field, let me know as well. Thanks for watching, guys. I truly appreciate it. Love you all so much. I'll see you soon. Bye.